There we are. All right. Let's see if we'll stay live this time. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, no matter where you are. Thank you for watching. Um, I'm hoping the signal's fine on this right now. A lot of times at night, we go to bed, we try to think about nothing so we can sleep. And last night I was going to bed and I just couldn't stop thinking. Some stuff was really just going on in my head as far as the church and specifically how the church has dealt with the prophetic gifting, and it was really just messing with my head and I couldn't sleep. And suddenly I had this vision in my head, and I just tried to ignore it at first because at first I thought it was like a catfish, a beautiful blue fish. And then I realized it wasn't a fish, it was a bird without a beak. And I tried to ignore it. I said, well, I'm just gonna go to bed. That's just the weirdest thing ever. It was a beautiful blue bird, and it had no beak. And so I thought, well, man, this is just strange. Okay, I'm going to go to bed, and I couldn't. Like immediately, I knew I had to start writing some stuff down. So I did. I started writing some things down, and what God was revealing to me was something I didn't expect because I wasn't really seeking anything like that. I was just what I thought was just thinking in my head. But let me explain to you what God began to show me. God began to show me that the removal of the gifts of prophecy and discernment and the gift of knowledge, these gifts were strategically removed from the church as a spiritual tactic, and not by God but against God. Because here's why. And as I was trying to figure out where this was going, I'm seeing this bird and trying to figure this all out. And then God started revealing these things. And I never roll over at night and write anything down, but this was so hard pressed that I had to. And here's what it is. These things were actually removed strategically by Satan inside the church. Okay, so Satan is actually moving inside the church at times and was removing these gifts of the Spirit and telling people they were dead, they're not useful, or anything like that. And here's why. These are the gifts that help stand up against false doctrines, false teachings, and all these different things. And by getting rid of them, it helped open up the door for all these false doctrines and false teachings to come in. So now you see all these false teachings, and you see a lot of churches that say they're Pentecostal, but they haven't had a prophetic word, a gift of knowledge, or any kind of discernment acting out inside their ministry for a very long time. And so false teachers and false doctrines begin to flow inside the ministry. And it's not that the people are demonic, let me be clear, it's not. But what happened is a false narrative got brought in and allowed these things to take place. And so now you see where some of these false doctrines are really taking over and have a strong grasp at things. And so what God was showing me, and as I was sitting there, he says, it's like you have a bird, a beautiful bird, blue, those iridescent ones that shine and sparkle. You have this beautiful bird. It has a beautiful song, but it has no beak. It has no way to put out its voice. And the church can be just like that. You can have the best looking church in the world, but it has no voice. It has no song to sing because it has put in these blocks along the way that has said these things can't happen. And I laid there at night trying to figure out what was, this was just weird. But that it was so strategic, the way the gift of prophecy, the gift of discernment, the gift of knowledge, all these things have been strategically removed from churches, even those who say they're Pentecostal. Even the Pentecostal churches have given these things up. And you're seeing these false doctrines grow. This thing of, oh, grace forgives everything is one of them. Or, you can do whatever you want and get away with it. It's like, there's a movie where they say, oh, it's a do whatever you want and get away with it badge. And people look at grace that way. Oh, you can do whatever you want and get away with it. And these false doctrines start coming in. And these very new age theologies come in. And we're chasing down strange worship music that is more like something from, what is it, Enya or Anya, whatever that girl is. That new age kind of stuff. And we're chasing, oh, this is the best music. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the gospel. And so what God was showing me in this vision was that the church has become just like this bird. We have some of the best looking churches in the world. We have some of the most beautiful congregations. We have beautiful buildings. We have lights. We have sound. We have all the technology. But we're a bird without a voice. We have no way to actually put out the truth, because those blocks, those checks and balances of prophecy, the words of knowledge, the discernment, all those things have been strategically removed, and the church is just kind of doing whatever it wants. And that's not what God had. God put these things out there for a purpose. The prophets always came forward and said, dude, you guys are messing up. You need to get it right, or else there's going to be calamity. And they say, oh, no, 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 whatever. We don't even have those people anymore to rise up in the church. So then when they do rise up, the first thing the church does is questions them and says, hey, who are you? And, one of the ones that got me, I sat in a church for a while at a college, and I was sitting there listening to the guy every Sunday. This guy would get up and give prophetic words, and they were so out of whack. And he would put these timestamps on Tuesday. This is going to happen, and it never happened. Finally, I went to one of the leaders of the church and said, "Who's this false prophet that keeps standing up?" And they said, "Oh, he's our pastor of prophecy." And I said, good night. Don't you have discernment? I mean, you've got prophecy, but do you have discernment? You've got to have them all. And there are checks and balances. And then when you have a pastor who stands up and starts preaching something that's so far-fetched, the people with discernment should be able to get up and say, hey, pastor, we need to have a conversation respectfully. There's something wrong with what you said here, and we need to talk about it. And they go, okay. And maybe the pastor says, hey, you know what? You're right. Or maybe I didn't mean to say it that way. But these things are supposed to be there so that we can protect it, so that we can protect the church from false doctrines. We cannot be a church without a voice. We have to have the voice, and we can't be, like I said, I had this vision of this bird, beautiful bird with no beak, just lips. It was a weird looking thing. But that's what God was saying. You can't have this beautiful bird sing without his beak. The beak is part of where the sound comes from. And I was just so impressed with it that I knew I had to put it out there. I've been working on editing videos all day and stuff like that, so I couldn't do a video earlier like I wanted to, but this is definitely something we need to pay attention to. And so I would ask you, look at your ministry and say, man, do we have these things covered? Do we have gifts of prophecy? Do we have gifts of discernment? Discernment's one of the biggest ones right now. We have to have a discerning spirit in the church. We need to be able to pick out the truths and the lies and figure out what's supposed to be there and what's not there. And, discernment is major, because so many churches are taken in right now by pastors who are pastoring because it's a job. Pastoring is not a job. It is a calling. It's a ministry. And too many churches now are hiring pastors as a job, and that is not what it was supposed to do. And then they wonder why the guy only lasts 2, 3, 4 years, because it wasn't his calling. He doesn't have the heart to put up with the nonsense that goes along with pastoring. A pastor will have that. You take a guy who doesn't know how to be a shepherd, put him out in the field and ask him to watch sheep, and he'll last just a couple of days maybe, because he can't deal with sheep. Sheep are dumb. They get lost. You have to spend your time chasing them, and they get into trouble. It's dangerous. People come after you, and it's not glamorous. And you got somebody who says, oh, I want to be a shepherd, and then they go out and try it, and they go, no, not for me. But then there's somebody like David. David had a passion for being a shepherd. And you see that, and you go, okay, that's a guy who has a passion for it. And that's how the pastor should be. The pastor should be able to take on all these weird things that come along and be, in some ways, almost comfortable with the weird things of ministry. But that's where we got to be. We got to have these gifts come up, this gift of knowledge, the gift of discernment, the gift of prophecy. All these things need to be active so that we can start seeing what's going on. The end times, everybody says, oh, the end times are coming. The end times are coming. That's great, but most of us wouldn't have a clue what was going on, because we don't have these different discernments and things to figure out what's going on. And we don't even have somebody in the church who can stand up and say, through the gift of discernment, I know that this is the right way, or this is the wrong way, and this is God moving, and this is not God moving. And you wonder how we end up with so many believers are going to take the mark of the beast. You get rid of the gift of discernment in the ministry, and good night. And the problem is, it's not even so much the gift of discernment's gone, it's that the church won't listen to people with discernment. And the church has got to start listening to those who have the gift of discernment that sit in the pew on Sunday. You have to listen to those people. I don't care if they're 12 or 50 or 90 years old. You have got to listen to them. Some of those young people sit in your church. We sat in church one day, and a young person stood up and said, why do we even come here? She looked around. She said, I can't understand why we're still doing this. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. And we sat there going, wow. But she was a young person in the church, and she had the discernment. She was seeing things. And we got to honor all these people. We got to, weigh it out. You always weigh it out. You always weigh it against Scripture. But the problem right now is the church, we like to get angry first and then consider things. And we really need to start weighing some of this stuff out. So that's it for today. Please, please, please look at your ministry and try to figure out where are these gifts at. Are you a church that has a voice or a church without a voice? And we need to have it, and we need to restore some of these in some of these ministries, especially some churches who have been so anti prophecy, anti knowledge, anti discernment, and we really need to bring these back in so that we can be aware of what's going on in our world. All right, that's it. Be blessed, and I will see you again another time.